Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Mario Kart 64 One Try League. We have a great match tonight between Dan, the world number 2, and Matthias, the world number 1. Last week they had an amazing 5-set match, so hopefully for us we see something like that again. Dan does have the first pick this week, so we'll get started very shortly. And for Dan's first pick, he's going to take us to Mario Raceway. Probably a good pick from him if their past matches are any indication. So the most important thing on this race is that mushroom cut they both did, both very clean on lap 1. Pretty short track, any mistake is going to cost you because there's not much opportunity to make up for it. Dan ahead by 0.3 after lap 1. Gets into the grass a little bit, but minimal time loss. The mushroom cut really is the big thing. Both very clean on lap 2 again. Dan on the grass, a little bit on the exit though. I think Matthias definitely caught up a little bit of time this lap. Catches up about the same amount as Dan was ahead on lap 1, so virtually tied here. Oh, Dan with a bit of a sloppy mushroom cut. That's probably going to give Matthias the race, especially now that Dan is in the grass. And Matthias is going to steal the first pick. So just really that mushroom cut, the big difference, as it usually is on Mario Raceway. So Matthias is picked next. It'll be interesting to see what he picks since he does have the early lead. He does have a limited number of solid picks against Dan. These guys are very close, so picks do become extremely important as their pools get a bit depleted. And he's taking us to Luigi Raceway, so starting off with the classic Raceway start. Matthias with the false start there, but so Luigi Raceway, very low variance. Dan misses his drift on the start. It's going to lose him some time early. But very low variance track. Mystery boost being one thing we've seen people of all levels missing. That is intentionally hitting the wall at the end of your shroom on lap 1. Gives you a weird speed boost to get out of the grass. I think they both got it. Kind of hard to tell when you have to watch two screens at once. And Matthias ahead by 0.02 after lap 1. And actually, he had gained a little bit of time on Dan that lap 1, so perhaps he didn't get the mystery boost. Both players pretty much in sync heading to the shrooms on lap 2. We'll see, Matthias was ahead by 0.02. And now Dan's ahead by 0.01. Extremely close race, and the nature of Luigi Raceway, this is going to come down to a photo finish, I would expect. Ooh, Dan had to jump out of his drift there. That might even be enough to give it to Matthias. It's not that big of a time loss though, so this is still going to be extremely close. And Dan takes it. Gained 0.12 on the last lap. Very well done. And we're going to complete the Raceway trifecta. We're going to Royal next. Seems to be the common thing that happens in these matches. Whenever the first two raceways get picked, the third one tends to get picked right after. The Royal Raceway, definitely some key places. The first is this 180 turn coming up around the wall. You really want to get as close to the wall and as clean as possible. Both very good jumps. This shroom as well, have to be careful not to hit the wall. We did see one of these players hit the wall in their last match, I believe. Can't remember who it was. And also at the end of the lap, there is a jump where you jump into the grass, and sometimes if you're a bit off on your landing, you bounce and it messes up your MT coming out of the grass. Neither player bouncing there, so this is actually a very similar lap from the two of them. And, oh, but Matthias actually ahead by 0.21 after lap 1. Matthias, though, struggling to get that MT off. Dan definitely gaining some time on this lap. Look to have a bit cleaner of a shroom as well. But Dan coming across, I think he might actually have taken the lead on that. Yeah, he did. Faster than Matthias by almost half a second. So about 0.3 ahead after lap 2. Ooh, Matthias struggling on the 180 a bit. Struggles to get the MT on landing and in the grass around the next turn. Giving Dan a pretty comfortable lead at this point. Really, the only thing left would be if Dan messes up so badly he falls into the water at the end, but I feel like even the commentator's curse isn't enough to make that happen. And he does take track number 3. A very good time from Dan, actually. Lap 1 sort of being an outlier there. So Toad's Turnpike, the next pick from Matthias. We have the cars as an obvious obstacle, but these players extremely talented. Matthias going to the inside of that first truck. Yeah, Dan's Royal Raceway only a little more than half a second off the world record, which in a one try is quite good. Especially on a track that's a bit longer like that. This track as well has a bit of variance on when you can use your shrooms. Most of the shroom spots are pretty much the same in terms of time saves, so I expect we'll see both players use at least one on lap 2. Most likely they'll use 2 of them on lap 2 and 1 on lap 3, but which corners they use their shrooms could vary. The first one will almost certainly be through these cars, yeah, to the left of this bus. Both make it through clean. Pretty risky shroom for us in the lower divisions in a one try, but for these guys it's just standard. Does look like Matthias has a bit of a lead on lap 2. I didn't notice their splits. So as you see, Dan using his shroom around that corner, Matthias saving his. Most likely Matthias will use his shrooms on the last corner on both of the last laps. And Dan, I'm not quite sure what his shroom strat will be. And he uses it around the last corner. So Dan gaining 0.2 on that lap, but has used all his shrooms. Matthias still has one of his. They look pretty much tied right now, which would give Matthias the net lead, since he does have that shroom. Yeah, these guys most of the time, if they're playing well, you're gonna see them crossing the finish line within a few hundredths at times, at most a couple tenths, if they're both not making any big mistakes. So Matthias using his shroom before the last corner, maybe thinking the last corner is a bit too risky. Maybe thinking he has enough of a lead. I think he's... Oh, and Dan hits a car. That does seal it. I think Matthias probably had it anyways, but yeah. Also a 2:58.95 is a very good time. Again, about 0.7 off the world record, which is a bit of a gap, but in a one try is still very good. So Dan now taking us to Bowser's Castle. Pretty high variance track. The thwomps are an issue. So those two thwomps in that room that are moving around, they do track you, but they kind of try to predict where you're going based on where you're holding the stick, so it's actually relatively easy to manipulate them to be out of your way. Normally in time trials we just have a ghost sitting there to distract them so that they're always out of your way. So Dan up by about 0.2 after lap 1. The thwomps also are on a cycle, so as long as you know your pace, you should really know where the thwomps are going to be. But lots of people have been hitting thwomps in this league. No, so Yoshi, Peach, and Toad are all the same. Toad is slightly lighter, but that doesn't matter for time trials, so any of the three, and then beyond that, it's just driver preference. So Matthias gaining back 0.09 on that lap, so pretty close race. Dan and Matthias actually both coming pretty close to a thwomp in that last room. Dan hits the wall on the after the bridge. That is going to give Matthias the lead. Dan does get a... Oh, he gets a bad bounce off the spiral, actually. Yeah, he got a wall clip, which can save quite a bit of time. And Matthias takes it, goes up 3-2 in the set. No, Dan's using a different cartridge. He's not using his PR cartridge. His PR is well over a second. Better than that. So we're going to Rainbow Road. Settle in, everyone. This one takes a while. It's about 6 minutes on PAL. I believe Matthias uses his PR cartridge, so if you see him getting close to his PR, then that's pretty insane. So neither with a really good Tran, but I believe Matthias's was better. So historically, Matthias does have the advantage on this track, but you never know. I messed up MT, hit a wall into a chomp. But this is a very long race. Ooh, Dan misses his drift, gets sent off to the left. Chomps as well, on cycles just like the Thwomps are, Bowser's Castle. So neither player is going to be surprised by where the chomps are when they get to them, but if you start to make too many mistakes, and if you hit a chomp, the cycles are off what you're used to, could get a bit of a surprise there, but even then, I'd expect these players to probably know where the chomps are going to be. One lap of Rainbow Road takes about as long as a full race of a few different tracks. So Matthias ahead by a little over half a second after lap 1. Both with good trans, so Dan's certainly not out of it yet. Ooh, Matthias coming very close to that chomp. Yeah, there's a list posted on Discord of their last match, all the different times that were top 15 on the leaderboards, and it was most of them. So these guys, especially in their last match, just hit another gear and started driving absolutely insane. Yeah, shortcuts are not allowed in this one-try league. It's all non-shortcut, with the exception of every match, each player can pick one track to be shortcut. So it should be interesting to see if either of them pick shortcut. I know there's one particular shortcut track that pretty much everybody has been picking against Dan. So I would expect that to make a return appearance. But Dan, don't believe, used his shortcut joker last time. But you never know, he might have been practicing something, preparing a joker. So Matthias extending his lead by another 0.3, so he's up 0.8. Yeah, I figured throwing in a joker per player made give it a little bit more interest, but at the same time, it is mostly a non-shortcut league. So the format is each set is a best of 7 tracks, and then the match is a best of 5 sets. So there's a minimum of 12 tracks and a maximum of 35. Depending on how far the sets go. And I believe in the last match they had last week, they broke 30 tracks. So it was a very close race. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone go for Weather Tanko. I don't think there's been a single Chaco shortcut called. There's some shortcut tracks that are much more common than others. Chaco, of course, has more than just the Weather Tanko, but still nobody's picked that as a shortcut, I don't think. The speedometer is not very useful. It's just kind of preference. Most people will use it. But really the only place... the only time it's really useful is when you're shrooming. The speedometer will actually slow a little bit near the end of your shroom, so you can time certain things with your shroom better. So Matthias with a 553, which is... yeah. Beats most people's PRs. And he will take set 1. How come there aren't 2 commentators? There has been for one match, but mostly it's just been one person. So Dan's first pick for set 2 is going to be Sherbetland. Penguins are the obvious obstacle. Last time they did this, Dan, and he's doing it again. He's scaring the crap out of me with the crack jumps. You want to take them pretty aggressive, but he's obviously feeling very comfortable and taking them much more aggressive than I would expect. Of course, for these guys, their threshold for what counts as risky is much higher than mine. Yeah, the Speedo's definitely the most important one if you're going to use one. 0.17 lead for Dan after lap 1. Oh, Dan hits the wall on the exit of the shroom. Looks like that's caught Matthias up. I think Matthias might have a slight lead after this. Matthias, I believe, catching up about 0.03. Oh, what? How did I... I'm amazed that made it. Dan kind of clipped into the ground there. I was ready to say, oh, he fell into the water. That crack jump was kind of insane. He did kind of need to take a risk like that, though. This is going to be a pretty close race at the end now. And Matthias still has it by 0.15. That wall hit in the cave really cost Dan. Yeah, you're going to see quite a lot of close races in this match. Both extremely talented and pretty damn close in skill level as well. And just in general, time trials is measured in hundredths and tenths rather than seconds. It's a best of 5 sets, so 3 sets and you win. So, Banshee Boardwalk next for Matthias. Ooh, Dan hitting the wall on the first turn. That is a pretty common mistake, but very costly. Banshee Boardwalk, a very tight and technical track. Not a lot of margin for error. Matthias with a pretty solid lead coming to the end of lap 2. Ooh, came very close to the wall there, but yeah, probably pretty comfortable for him. Both these guys getting to where they are have to live pretty much inside the walls in this game. And Matthias does take track number 2. Dan taking us to DK Jungle Parkway. So the biggest thing on this track is going to be the jump off the bridge. You want to land as far left as you can, but if you go too far left, you're not going to make it over. There is a texture they tend to aim for. Dan very far left, does make it. Gets hit by that third coconut and misses his NT though. It's also the problem of the ground being quite uneven in this part of the track, and then the cave is certainly a big time swing if you get it right or wrong. And Dan ahead by 0.16. 0.26, sorry. Does miss an MT under that bridge. This time Matthias with the much further left jump. Ooh, Dan hitting the tree on the shroom. So Matthias probably catching up most, if not all of that time. He was behind on lap 1. Yeah, he gains 0.35. So he is ahead by about a tenth. Very close race. They are a bit desynced if that's the time difference. Matthias with the better jump on lap 3. This cave climb going to be very important. Ooh, Dan looks like his was a little bit slow. And Matthias takes it by 0.06. Yeah, a bit scruffy from both players, honestly. But Matthias just with that little bit better of a race. Yeah, 0.06 very close. There has been a few 0.01 differences between these guys. And there has actually been one tie in the league. And Matthias taking us to Moo Moo Farm. Yeah, there's been quite a few races in the league that have been separated by 0.01. And again, there has been one race that's been tied. PR is personal record, interchangeable with PB. So Moo Moo Farm, one of the highest variance tracks. The moles are completely random, so they're going to want to just try to not go over any of the holes. Unfortunately, there is a bit of geometry. The ground surface is very uneven, and if you hit a certain part of a fence, you're going right into a molehill. Dan hits a mole, risking going through that first patch. He did do that in their last match, and it actually managed to get him a win on this track over Matthias. This is one of the tracks where Matthias does have a bit of an advantage, especially as Matthias has been playing it for world record very recently. So unless Matthias hits a mole here, which is certainly possible. And yeah, gets through safely. Dan tries to go risky. He had to, but hits a mole again, and Matthias is going to take a 2-0 set lead. And Matthias also just beat my PR by going super safe. Slightly depressing. Just going to take a real short break here. One of our players going to get a drink. So, just a minute. No, the RNG would be completely different. They're playing... I mean, it's the same in the sense that they're both playing the same game with the same RNG parameters within the game, but no, the moles won't be up at the same time. So Dan taking us back to Royal Raceway, probably a good pick. He needs to start off this set well. Yeah, the RNG in this game is also determined by every input you make, so just the fact that their driving styles are going to be slightly different means they're going to get different RNG. Yeah, this is how their first match started, Matthias going up 2-0, and Dan not only forced a 5th set, but it went to the 7th track in that 5th set, so certainly not over yet. Dan also, historically, when he's doing PR attempts, does much longer sessions. Matthias does pretty short sessions, so the advantage does kind of swing over to Dan the longer this goes. Matthias up by 0.3 after lap 1. Dan did miss a couple MTs in there. They are both using N64 controllers, yes. Although interestingly, in MK64 there's a lot of driver preference on how good of a stick you want. It varies wildly. Matthias, for example, likes a pretty stiff and tight stick, and Dan likes one so loose I'm surprised it generates inputs at all. Dan doesn't get the jump off of that hill. He does gain 0.11. So about behind by about 0.2 after lap 2. He does bang in a really good lap here. That is definitely a margin he can catch up on this track. landing at virtually the same time, so they're a bit desynced on their start. That's who's in the lead. We'll see as they hit the finish line. Could be very close. And Matthias takes it by 0.02. Wow. That lap one really hurting Dan there. Is that by a frame? I actually don't know. PAL is 25 frames per second, so somebody else do the math. So Matthias taking Dan's pick there. It's very unfortunate. Dan does need to take advantage of his picks at this point. Matthias does have the opportunity, being 2 sets up, to burn all of his really good picks against Dan and just hope that there isn't a 4th set. And he is using one of those picks, Moo Moo Farm. We'll see if Dan decides to go risky through that first set of moles again. I know he has said he's been specifically practicing that, so I would expect he probably will, especially knowing that Matthias is pretty consistent and fast here. And he does, makes it through clean on lap 1. Ooh, gets very close to the mole and hits one on the last patch. And into the pillar, and he DQs. Pauses. Not allowed to pause in this league. Probably a pretty safe bet that he wasn't going to win that one. Matthias now knows that Dan's quit, holding him empty as long as possible. He does have to finish the race to get the point. Risks the first mole patch and misses it. Dan and Zoran are probably the 2 in this league who pause and DQ the most. So Dan going Mario Raceway, one of his better picks. Did lose on this track in the first trip here, but historically a very good pick for him. So again, this mushroom cut being the most important part of this lap. Both getting through pretty clean. Though it did look like Matthias's was a little bit better. Got a nice hit off the shroom. See what their times are after lap 1. And Dan ahead by 0.05 after lap 1. Not surprising at all that they're that close. This lap being so short. Both pretty clean again. This time I think Dan probably got the better one, but very close. And gains another 0.08, so that's 0.13 in the lead for Dan. And gets a very solid mushroom cut that time. Oh, but he hits the wall! And that's gonna give it to Matthias. He did start that drift pretty early. Really unfortunate. Matthias with some very consistent times there. So Matthias now with match point. And he's going to go with Fraps No Land Joker. Historically, this has been one that Dan has struggled on, so probably a very good pick. See what happens though. This being shortcut, it can get pretty hectic. So Matthias actually kind of losing his shroom there. So Dan, if he did get that shortcut, which he didn't, he missed the shortcut, and Matthias got it. So that's pretty much going to be it. Both get it on the second attempt. I think Dan might have just missed it again. Yeah, Dan misses it again. So Matthias is going to take that, and he is going to take the match. So congratulations to Matthias, a much quicker match than last time. Unfortunately for us, but maybe fortunately for them. Dan does have another match against the other Dan, Battle of the Dans. That one unfortunately not on Speed Gaming, but on their personal channels, so go check them out on that. And until next time, I'll look up real quick what is the next Speed Gaming match currently scheduled. It is Zoran versus Matthias on Saturday at noon Eastern. So come on back for that one. And until then, thanks for coming. See you next time.